Hello, Peter.
Hi? Do I know you?
What have you done with my machine?
Hey, what's up everyone? It's Ryan here from The Y, and today we're gonna be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I remember back in early 2021 seeing an article with Tom Holland describing Spider-Man 3, and he said, "It's the most ambitious standalone superhero movie ever made." And although I probably scoffed at that comment back when I read it, I think it's clear to all of us now that he was being 100% truthful. On that note, let's get right into the video. Here are 30 facts you didn't know about Spider-Man No Way Home. The donut shop, where MJ works at in the film, is actually a real place in Brooklyn called Peter Pan Donut and Pastry Shop. So you would think they had to shoot in Brooklyn to get those scenes filmed, but that wasn't the case at all. Instead, producers took photos of the real Peter Pan Donut and Pastry Shop and built a recreation of it down in Atlanta. Of course, the owners of the donut shop were ecstatic to be featured in No Way Home, and business is definitely booming thanks to that fact. Another cool thing to note is that the original version of the script had a Stan Lee lookalike make an appearance in the scene where Peter attempts to reconnect with MJ and Ned. With a script as ambitious and earth-shattering as Spider-Man No Way Home, it's no wonder a lot of the cast members had their doubts about whether it was actually going to happen. Speaking on the film, Tom Holland said, "In all honesty, I didn't think it was something that they could pull off," with Zendaya adding, "Oh, that's a nice idea. That's never going to happen, but it's really cool." But as we all know by now, everything they said was going to happen actually came true. So it's cool to see that the cast were just as shocked as all of us.
I am so confused right now.
As you probably know by now, Spider-Man No Way Home had a lot of different ideas about what direction they were going to take with the story. As they were flirting with the idea of the multiverse and its endless possibilities, the thought of bringing back Mysterio was pondered, but ultimately never panned out. Concept artist Andrew Reeder even created this piece depicting Doctor Strange and Mysterio fighting on top of the Statue of Liberty. And although it looks pretty sick, this is as close as we'll ever get to seeing Mysterio again. Spider-Man No Way Home set an all-time record for the most viewed movie trailer in the first 24 hours with 355 million views. This shattered the previous record held by Avengers Endgame, which came in at 289 million, and almost tripled the number of views that Far From Home held, which was 135 million. J.K. Simmons reprising his role as J. Jonah Jameson was a big surprise even for him, and he jumped at the opportunity when they first presented it. Obviously, the character of Jameson is relatively the same, besides the fact that he now runs an online media outlet instead of a newspaper. But there were some other changes that didn't sit too well with Simmons. Right out the gate, the producers told him his character was now going to be balding, as opposed to the flat top haircut he sported in the original Spider-Man, which understandably pissed him off. Who doesn't want to have a good head of hair, even if it's fake? Then there was talk about losing both the mustache and cigar that gave Jameson such an iconic look back in the original trilogy. Simmons tried to fight them on both fronts, but in the end was only able to keep the mustache.
Tragedy. What else can I call it?
In the final scene of No Way Home, Peter crafts a brand new suit with a golden spider, shown by the sewing machine and spare pieces of fabric sitting on the table. And it's easy to see why many people theorized that the suit was a callback to earlier Spider-Mans, as the design matches up well with Tobey's, and the color looks very similar to Andrew's. And with the script now being released, this theory has turned into canon. As it reads, Spider-Man flips and rolls across a snowy roof in a blue and red suit. New for him, but reminiscent of suits he's seen before. As for the golden spider emblazoned on his chest, I think it's most likely an homage to his own history, which includes his previous Iron Spider and integrated suits. The biggest change made in regards to a previous villain's look was without a doubt Jamie Foxx's Electro. And I tend to think this was a really good idea, because the original design in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was not well received by fans and Jamie Foxx alike, as his blue body was a big departure from the comics. So when producers came to Fox about making a return to the big screen as Electro, an updated look was the major selling point that got him excited to step back into the role.
The power
It's different. I like it.
If I had to give out an award for Best Actor in No Way Home, Willem Dafoe wins it hands down. According to Zendaya, Dafoe scared the hell out of everyone and was so good at being nice and then instantly turning it on. Part of the reason why he was so great at re-becoming the Green Goblin after so many years away is because he pushed for doing almost all his own stunts, even at the age of 65. And just like the initial Spider-Man film of 2002, anytime Willem Dafoe was Norman Osborn, he had prosthetic teeth, while whenever he turned into the Green Goblin, his real teeth were shown.
You are the one that killed her.
One of the biggest inspirations for No Way Home was surprisingly the 1945 Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life. If you've seen it, you probably know where I'm going with this, as the time-honored movie follows George Bailey, a man who under extreme duress wishes he had never been born. Bailey's guardian angel grants him that wish and shows George a timeline in which he had never been born. But at the end of the film, after realizing just how much of a positive impact he's had on his friends and family, George makes another wish, this time for his life just to return back to normal. So when you look at the ending sequence of No Way Home, it's basically the inverse of It's a Wonderful Life, as Peter wishes for everyone to forget who he is rather than remember who he is. As expected from a movie that deals with the multiverse and all its implications, there were many plans that fell through for some reason or another. Two of those failed proposals that stand out from the rest both dealt with the multiverse, but one was way too underwhelming, while the other was much too ambitious. The first plan involved the villains only showing up in a post-credits scene, with the main plot being something else entirely, while the second plan had every character from past Spider-Man films making a crossover, a feat that would have been too difficult to pull off. These three latest Spider-Man movies were the first Marvel series to feature the same director throughout all the films. It sounds crazy, but it's totally true, as any of the other Marvel trilogies or quadrilogies like Iron Man, Thor, and the Avengers only had 2 movies that shared the same director. If there's one thing that No Way Home wasn't short on, you'd have to say cameos. But even with all the cameos we got, there were still a couple that got left out. Morgan, Tony Stark and Pepper Potts' daughter, was originally going to make an appearance in the movie. Lexi Rabe said she even filmed the scenes, they just never made the cut. Interestingly, I've seen many people say this might have actually been a good thing, because of the fact that for the first 2 movies, Peter had basically been living in the shadow of Tony Stark. And with No Way Home, this was finally his chance to grow up and start building his own legacy apart from that of Stark's. So if Tony's daughter showed up in No Way Home, some of that could have been taken away. Holland's brother Harry also had a brief appearance as a drug dealer being caught by Spider-Man cut from the movie as well. But at least Tom was able to get his brother the same role in the film Cherry. Back in 2004, when Spider-Man 2 came out, the world of filmmaking was much less advanced compared to today, and this was especially true in the realm of CGI. This meant that to get a functioning Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina had to work in tandem with several puppeteers, each operating one of his metal arms. Fast forward to the present day, and all that work is now done with the magic of CGI, which Molina was eternally grateful for. Instead of having to coordinate with several puppeteers operating his arms, Molina was attached to a crane, which moved him around the room, giving the illusion that his arms were doing all the work, which apparently was a lot of fun for him and almost akin to a theme park ride.
I'm grateful. Dear boy, truly.
If you take a look at who owns the rights to Spider-Man in all its different forms, it's a little bit confusing. Marvel owns the rights to any Spider-Man comics. Sony has control over Spider-Man in film, and Marvel also owns any merchandise related to the character. This means that Marvel and Sony work somewhat closely together, as they both have a vested interest in the property. And things came to a head in 2019 after the release of Far From Home, as Sony wanted to expand the existing deal to include more films, while Marvel wanted a higher stake in any of those aforementioned films. The two companies couldn't come to an agreement, and Sony pulled the rug on the third Spider-Man film. They then planned to integrate the character into their own Sony Spider-Man universe, but 2 things stopped that from happening. First, there was major backlash from the fans. And second, Tom Holland may have helped reignite talks with Sony after he drunkenly cried to Disney CEO Bob Iger about the prospect of the movies being over. The original idea for No Way Home's story included Kraven the Hunter as the main antagonist. And surprisingly, this isn't the first time that Kraven's been sought after for a Marvel film, as Ryan Coogler wanted to put him in Black Panther, but was unable to secure the rights, even though the world's greatest hunter hasn't officially made an appearance in a Marvel film yet. His silhouette did make a slight cameo at the end of No Way Home, which was undoubtedly beneficial for the working relationship between Marvel and Sony, as this brief viewing set up the upcoming 2023 Kraven the Hunter movie produced by Sony. If you were to look at the Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man versus the Lizard from No Way Home, sure, he's got an updated design, but for the most part, he basically looks the same. But initially, the producers considered a wildly different look, more akin to his comic book self. In my opinion, it looks pretty damn good, and way more intimidating than the finished product in No Way Home, but I can also see their reasoning for keeping the design roughly the same. As they explained, not changing the Lizard's look was necessary to keep the continuity in regards to the Amazing Spider-Man films. Acting in line with what Doctor Strange might say if he were real, Benedict Cumberbatch was skeptical about the ultra-high hopes that producers had for No Way Home. Cumberbatch explained how people around the movie were saying stuff like, "We'll know about the future of cinema after this film," which prompted him to think, okay, everyone's drinking too much of the Kool-Aid around here. But after the film's release, Cumberbatch admitted his ignorance and that he couldn't actually predict the future like his Marvel counterpart. Although maybe we can't blame him too much, as he's come out and said in multiple interviews that he never even read the full script, so he could be surprised just like the rest of us. I think at this point, it's safe to say that very little escaped the impact of COVID, and Spider-Man No Way Home was surely not an exception. The movie suffered several setbacks. The first release date was July 16th, 2021. Then it got pushed back to November 5th, and finally to December 17th. During all this rescheduling, the movie, which was originally slated to come out after Doctor Strange 2, got switched in the order in which it was set to be released. This led to many changes having to be made to the script to make Doctor Strange unaware of the multiverse, as earlier versions had him bringing first-hand knowledge to No Way Home.
We tampered with the stability of space-time to resurrect countless lives. Do you want to do it again now just because yours got messy?
If you've read the comics or looked up enough stuff online, you've probably heard the speculation around whether or not Ned is going to become the Hobgoblin sometime in the future. For those of you out of the loop, the Hobgoblin is a supervillain who bears a striking resemblance to the Green Goblin, and in the comics, Ned is eventually brainwashed into becoming the villain. And true, Ned in the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't fit the supervillain mold one bit, but there were a ton of references in No Way Home that say otherwise.
And I promise you, I won't turn into a supervillain and try to kill you. Do you think there are other Ned Leedses?
I'm lame compared. Like, I fought a Russian guy in a rhinoceros machine.
Even though at first glance, this might seem like throwaway dialogue that's a bit comical, there's a deeper meaning here that stems from real life. In multiple interviews about the Amazing Spider-Man films, Andrew Garfield has stated that he was heartbroken by the end of it, and never felt like he could do enough to rescue the movies. And it makes sense that Garfield might feel this way, as his movies were much lower rated compared to the other two, and he was also the only Spider-Man not to get a third installment. So although it looked like the two were just talking about supervillains, on another level, Maguire was letting Garfield know that he was still a member of the fraternity of Spider-Mans, and that he really had nothing to be ashamed about.
You are amazing.
I can take that.
You are amazing.
Thank you, yeah,
Will
thanks.
you say it?
No, I kind of needed to hear that. Thank you.
Because of just the sheer number of cameos in No Way Home, not everyone got to play a big role in the story. For me, the two characters who felt a little underwhelming would have to be Sandman and the Lizard, which in hindsight is not all too shocking, as both actors only did voice work and never even showed up to set. This means that everything you saw on the screen was produced through the magic of VFX, and at the end of the movie, when they revert back to their human form, both sequences were created through recycled shots from Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man. In my opinion, the Spider-Man trilogy was one of the most innovative and well thought out series of movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so it's no surprise that the reveal of No Way Home was just as awesome. It all began on February 23rd, 2021, when Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon posted 3 different images to Instagram. Holland said, "Spider-Man, phone home." Zendaya posted, "Spider-Man, home slice." And finally, Batalon's read, "Spider-Man, home wrecker." Obviously, none of these were the actual name of the movie, but it all made a lot more sense as the very next day, this happened.
Alright, so?
Gave us a fake name again.
I don't think so.
During the scene where Peter is walking up the stairs at school, you can see a mural that showcases many famous scientists. Among real-life figures like Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein, there are some Marvel Universe scientists, including Howard Stark, Dr. Abraham Erskine, and Hank Pym. Initially, the introduction of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield was gonna be a lot different than how it played out in the final version. Rather than showing up by coincidence right after Aunt May's death, they were gonna be brought by an unknown Marvel character who basically said, "Here are the saving graces and they're going to help you through this," almost in a Deus Ex Machina type way. I'm not gonna lie, this sounds pretty terrible, and I'm glad they didn't go through with it. It obviously would have crushed any personal aspect to the scene and their introduction as a whole. If you haven't seen the numerous compilations of Andrew Garfield lying about his role in No Way Home, I suggest you go watch one, cause I'm not sure if anyone's ever had to lie about an upcoming part as much as that man had to.
It's Andrew Garfield playing Spider-Man again. Yeah. Oh, you almost got me. No, I'm not.
And according to Garfield, lying to the internet felt great, as he saw the whole thing as being similar to organizing a surprise birthday party. On a related note, fans everywhere have been clamoring for Garfield to get his due in the form of a third Amazing Spider-Man film, and in light of recent events, it might actually happen. And when asked for an update, this was Garfield's response.
No update from me. No one's gonna believe anything I say ever again. That's my problem.
Although Peter Parker's goodbye to Spider-Man 2 and 3 seemed pretty cut and dry, this deleted scene may raise some eyebrows.
You know where to find us.
Of course, this take didn't make it into the final version, so I might be barking up the wrong tree, but they did film it, so who knows, they might be making a comeback sooner rather than later.
Wait. I love you guys.
As you know, continuity is super important, and Marvel definitely understands that, and are one of the best in making sure each of their films adheres to a certain standard. Here are my 5 favorite continuity Easter eggs. During a news broadcast, the text on the bottom is a reference to the upcoming Thor movie. It reads, "Political turmoil continues in New Asgard as Zeus." It cuts off before we can see any more, but I think it's safe to assume it was going to say Zeus, as Russell Crowe has already been confirmed for the role. Peter's black and gold suit that he wears to go investigate in the woods is actually just his suit turned inside out, and the first time we were shown this was in Homecoming. Ned's laptop features the same meme in all 3 movies. In the beginning of the film, MJ is seen wearing the same Black Dahlia necklace that Peter bought in Venice. And during the scene, when Peter receives another rejection letter, the same Lego Death Star from Homecoming is broken yet again. Due to the fact that No Way Home featured 3 different generations of Spider-Mans, there were a ton of references to the previous movies. Here are 5 of them that you may have missed. Tom Holland dodges bombs, just like Tobey's 2002 Spider-Man. When people find out Spider-Man's true identity, the same line is spoken.
You're just a kid?
He's just a kid.
Before the final battle, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker complaining about his back is a reference to Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, that's good. That was it.
Wow. That's good.
My back. Oh, my back.
This line is also a callback to Spider-Man 2.
Tells me you're brilliant. He also tells me you're lazy.
Trying to do better.
How are you? Trying to do better.
Finally, I'm sure you know that Andrew Garfield's Peter saving MJ was a callback to what he failed to do in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But what may be surprising is that No Way Home reused the same sound effects from the previous film. As with all Marvel films, references to the comics were in no short supply. I'm not going to go over all of them, so I've narrowed it down to my 5 favorites. During the final battle, in a few shots, you can see that the electric field around Electro forms a mask around his face, a reference to his look in the comics. When Peter encounters Dr. Octopus on the bridge, the license plate shown is a callback to the comic book The Amazing Spider-Man 1963, number 3, which was the first appearance of Doc Ock. Also on the bridge is a taxi number that references December 28th, Stan Lee's birthday. One of the best decisions in No Way Home was getting rid of the Green Goblin's mask, which also makes his appearance much more similar to his comic book counterparts. And during the scene when Doctor Strange knocks Peter out into the astral plane, you can actually see the Spidey sense lines coming off his head, just like in the comics. Tom Holland had this comment about the future of him as Spider-Man. There definitely was a sense for me, as an actor, that this was the last time that I could potentially don the suit, before you freak out and assume he's done as Spider-Man. I think he said this for a couple reasons. First, the movie brought together 3 different generations of the Spider-Man character, so it was obviously emotional. And this was also the end of the Homecoming trilogy, so you could understand why he was feeling this way. But I'll tell you one thing, this was definitely not the last of Holland you're going to see in a Spider-Man suit, as producers have already said they're getting ready to make the next movie. If that means another trilogy is on the way is yet to be seen. Granted, Holland, who is 25, did say he doesn't want to play the character past 30. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, I enjoyed making it. And I was just thinking, I think this is the first video I've done on a Marvel film, which is crazy because I'm a huge fan, but I just never got around to making a video on one. So let me know if you like it, and maybe I'll do some more. Alright, till next time, have a great day.